Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome to Deep Fat Fried.
Good day to you.
Howdy do. Howdy do da day there, mister. That's a handsome mustache you keep. Could you give me the name and address of your barber, sir? I'd like to give him a visit. Pay him a visit.
You're paying him a visit. Do it myself. I ain't gonna pay no damn fancy
Well, sir,
barber.
then may I say, no matter what your trade may be, you could easily set up a barbery.
That's good. I'm in human trafficking myself, but...
Oh, yeah, the slave trade. Well, you know.
Hold on, Scotty. You stay right there, buddy. Not that you're going anywhere.
What do you...
He needs more, dude.
He needs oh, more. You're adding some more? What else are you at? What else could he possibly need?
He needs a fucking cowboy hat.
Oh, yeah.
Damn right I do.
Well, sir, what do they call that now where you're from? Is that a 13-gallon hat?
Oh, ain't nothing less than a 14-gallon.
And you wear it side style like the banditos.
Yeah, maybe this would be better on you, Paul.
Oh, well.
Well, no, you're already wearing a hat.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Paul
no?
is the frito bandito.
Take my hat off if you want. Look.
Yeah. Wear a proper hat, Paul. You piece
Can't
of
do
shit.
this episode with one of these fancy Yankee hats on your head, can you?
Well, yee.
There we go.
Yeehaw, partner.
Let me tell you a little story about a man named Jed.
Barely made enough just to keep his family fed.
Move that hat a little bit. Make it. Oh, I guess it's okay where it is.
I mean, I could make it a little
It looks dashing. No, TJ, it's fine. It looks dashing.
Does it?
Got a pinch of the dash.
Is it dashing?
Yes.
Scotty, get your mustache. You got to be where... No. Sit where the mustache
No,
is.
Scotty.
Bad, Scotty. Bad. You fucking bad. All right, enough of this shit.
What do you mean enough of this
Fuck
shit?
you
Enough
guys.
of this shit, dude.
Nope. Nope. You guys can't be fucking trusted with these props. You're bad people. You're awful.
Look, I know bad
You're
people,
awful.
and you're terrible people.
I know them. I know them all. So, Scotty, I have a Scott Stevens. Can we do the Scott Stevens?
Oh,
Is
shit.
it Scott Stevens time?
I have a fucking
yeah.
so, but go ahead.
All right, well,
Oh, shit.
Paper, rock, scissors to see who gets to go first.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. One round, though. I don't want any bitching.
All right.
Best two
All right,
out of three
and we're
shit.
doing rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Yeah, one,
so
two,
you
three,
do it on
shoot.
shoot.
1, 2,
Okay?
3, shoot.
I want to practice, TJ. Rock, paper,
2, 3, shoot.
Okay.
Okay, that's how it's going. All
All
right.
right.
Ready?
All right. Rock, paper, scissors. Oh, damn. All right.
TJ's
Go first.
Scott Stevens will be heard
All right.
first.
The Scott Stevens is this. So every time you guys come by, my bathroom smells weird. And I realize that it's Scotty.
Oh, Scotty is waiting, brewing up the nasty deuce and then bringing it
it's
over
not
here
even
to
that.
drop it.
It's not even that. His piss smells weird. He's got weird smelling piss.
Oh, it's like asparagus smelling piss. Or
I don't know.
whatever?
It smells like a fucking aquarium in my goddamn bathroom every time he takes a piss in there.
An aquarium?
Yeah. Like a fucking not well-maintained aquarium where all the fish are dead.
Maybe.
Why does your piss smell like dead fish, Scotty? What's wrong with you? You need to go to a doctor. You need to take a urine sample to your doctor.
Never proven my
and
fucking
hold it up
piss.
to their nose and be like, smell this.
My piss doesn't smell like dead fish, dude.
Your piss smells like dead fish,
No,
dog.
it does not, dude.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
That's your piss, dude.
No, it ain't.
Yeah, it is.
No, it ain't.
Yes, it
My
is.
piss might not smell like
My
roses,
piss
but it
doesn't-
don't smell like no
This
damn...
is a pretty weak Scott Stevens.
Dude,
Like I
my
see
piss
no
doesn't-
evidence being presented.
Yeah,
a
What evidence?
Vague
Oh,
insinuation.
so
that his
you want me
piss
to get
smells
evidence? You want me to get evidence?
Well,
you want me
I'd
to
like
fucking
you to
collect a urine
provide-
sample from Scotty and
I
wave it
know,
under your fucking nose?
But I'd like something better than like you pointing your
Yeah,
finger
I
and
come here.
I'm just telling you what's
calling down
happened.
a witch hunt on a man who never did anything wrong in my eyes. You know.
Well, whatever. Every time he leaves my house, my bathroom smells weird.
I don't fuck. If I piss in your toilet, I literally flush it right away.
It doesn't matter. The piss wafts through the air.
I've
makes no
dropped
Thick as cologne.
I have dropped some funky shits here. I mean, I you know, whatever. I'm here.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
do the show here. I've peed here, and I've sometimes when I pee, it's like a normal, good colored pee, and sometimes it's that bright orange, like looks like orange
Paul,
Gatorade
listen,
type of
let me
pee.
tell you something, Paul. As far as I'm concerned, you're blameless in all this. This is Scotty's problem. It's Scotty's fault.
I don't see any evidence you fucking presented.
Trying to
TJ.
inject a little bit.
You know what, TJ? Are you done with yours? You got
Yeah,
anything
go
else
ahead.
You got anything else to add?
No, That's it.
I mean,
All
that's
right.
weak sauce, dude. Let me just fucking tell you right now.
Let's hear.
I mean, I'm not even
Scotty's
convinced
Scottiva,
because I've
or
never had that problem.
Tejivas.
Look, I've smelled my piss several times, dude. I've bathed in my own piss.
I have
TJ.
not, dude. I've had
Bathed in your own
I've
piss?
bathed in my
What?
own piss.
I've had Scotty over my pad before, and
I
he's
have
pissed
clean,
in my
sterile
pad.
piss.
I've never smelled
You ain't never had
a
no-
fish boat
I've never
dock
had anyone else say
odor
this.
after
Whatever.
he pees.
Quit lying,
This is him
Paul.
fucking white.
Quit trying to protect Scotty's fragile
feelings.
feelings.
You know what? Fuck you, TJ.
Yeah.
You're gonna fucking keep going with this. Let me tell you something.
I'm done. I've said my piece.
I think that the person that blows up the most bathrooms and makes them smells
TJ.
weird is the one that doth protest too much, sitting right over there.
Oh, dude, if TJ hits up your toilet, dude, fuck, dude.
you
clearing that
know it's nuclear.
out. I mean, it's just one of those people, dude. Like, you could not go to the bathroom if she takes a shit, man. There's no fucking possible.
I mean, I wouldn't
way,
recommend going in after
No,
I do either,
anybody.
but
I
I
mean,
mean,
dude,
TJ will putrefy.
I mean,
a
I've had
bathroom.
to do it, Paul, where it's like Paul took a shit, I gotta take a piss real bad, and I like run in there. It smells bad, but it's not like doing TJ.
It's a special extra sour note.
The only person worse than TJ that I know personally is fucking Stevie, dude. If Stevie takes a shit,
You are fucking right.
Oh my God,
there's
dude.
No
You are
fucking way.
fucking right. I
There's
ain't
no
even gonna
way you
dispute
going
it.
in there.
Not
man.
only
You got
that-
45 minutes.
Not
at
only
least.
that, but have you ever gone into the bathroom when he forgot to flush the toilet?
Fuck. Oh no. Dude, it's a
I don't even
long.
wanna know.
Anaconda
It's like
hunt
a
for the
fu-
blood
it's like
orchid,
this.
dude.
Oh my god.
Dude, his shits are like fucking bigger than horse cocks. They are.
Oh my god.
It's like a fucking demon. It's like
Oh god, no.
I've literally seen him run out of the bathroom and go grab like a clothes hanger and run back in to chop up the shit so that it can go down the fucking toilet.
That's a true toilet choker right there, dude.
Oh,
When like your shit is so big, you look at that
Oh
opening
my
and open,
God.
it's like I can't handle anymore, Captain. The fucking
I mean,
is clogging
I've-
up.
I've
He's
taken
trying to
some-
fucking flush it. The shit's water's brewing up higher.
Dude, I've taken some fucking toilet cloggers in my day though.
mean, everyone
I ain't gonna
has.
lie. I've plugged it up before.
Dude, I one time I went to fucking Disney World, dude, and I did not fucking take a shit for 2 days, and that's like one of the few times I've ever clogged a toilet, man. Because I had to hold it because someone else was in there. I fucking like the minute they got out, I ran in there. They didn't flush the toilet. I'm like, what? And I fucking clogged that, dude. And that was I realized that's like what it's like to be Stevie on a normal day.
Dude, have you ever done a bull ringer?
What's that?
That's like one unbroken curl of turd that circles the bowl.
Oh
no,
yeah,
I don't think I've done that.
I think I've done that.
One time in my life, I shot a bull ringer.
Dude, that's awesome, dude.
It was pretty fucking amazing. I totally didn't expect it.
goddamn moment of my life, boy.
Yeah. I stood up, turned around to flush, and I was like, what? It was like the One Ring, dude. It was like Sauron's eye looking at me from the toilet, man.
One turn.
It was beautiful.
To
I wish
rule them all.
it was before the age of the smartphone, so you know.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Nope.
Yeah.
And before the age of sharing pictures of your shits on the internet. So.
Have we reached that age?
Oh yes.
I'm glad
We're well beyond the age.
I am glad I'm not
You ain't never-
traveling in those circles.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you don't run across just pictures of human turds floating in toilets and memes and
don't-
stuff.
all the time, dude.
I mean,
all
Every
the
day.
fucking
I
time.
might have seen that a couple times.
No,
but
a bunch
not-
of times.
Dude,
No, not
And you
really.
know what?
Not
The
for
selection
filming.
is wide and varied of human logs
But you know what?
floating in the fucking
Pretty
toilet.
much, if anyone is like even reposts like some meme that I don't like, I pretty much instantly unfollow them. So I'm like, nope, memes suck, go away. So that's probably why I haven't.
Well,
been
I don't. Well, wait a minute.
subjected to as
but I
much.
don't. Well, I
got
don't
a couple.
follow. It's like followers. It's like going into the fucking. It's not. I don't never see that shit on the front page of my shit. It's when I like looking at the comments, and that's where you see that shit.
Okay.
I've never seen that. So
What?
I've never seen that.
You've never seen a meme that has like a turd floating in the toilet and it's like time to flush Pelosi or whatever and it's
No.
got Trump's head on it or whatever. You never seen something like that?
No.
You're gonna pretend.
Well, I'm sure I will
Fucking
now.
God.
I'm
Can
sure
we
I'm
even
gonna
go
be sent a
forward with
bunch,
this goddamn
so-
show now? Can we even go forward with the show now?
I don't know. Can we?
Can we go forward with the show? With T. Wait a minute. We
Paul,
can.
hey, Paul, it's all been a dream, dude. You're a dog having a dream.
It's true.
Dude, I have it to Jeevans. We gotta start this fucking episode. It's gonna have to wait for another goddamn day. Because it totally digressed. We gotta start this fucking
It's okay, Scotty. Put your headphones on. Put your headphones on. That's right. Now let that sing a song to you.
It feels like I'm in the fucking high west, dude. High
Now
noon.
TJ put a thick pair of fucking Mad Owl glasses on this young picture of Jesse James.
Because he looks like a dyke.
Well, he actually made him look like
Wait,
a
is
boss
that?
of
Can I
mine.
say dyke?
I don't
He
think
looks
so.
like a lesbian
Do you mean
woman.
like a dyke as in like something that's
Yeah.
that's
I
like
mean,
blocking water
aren't there
from flowing
some
onto land?
lesbian
Well,
women that self-identify as
Yeah, like
dykes? and,
dykes on bikes. What
Right.
about that?
Right. Anyway, who cares?
Anyway,
Let's
did Jesse James identify as a dyke?
no.
No one
Okay.
knows.
This is a young picture of Jesse James. He might be like 14, 13, something like that in this picture.
He's already got his guns.
Well, I mean, he's a southern kid,
Yeah.
you know,
From the South.
from the South. He's born in Clay County, Missouri.
Clay County, goddamn
Boy, I
Missouri,
know Clay County. It's a great place to grow up.
On September 5th, 1847.
That's pretty
So,
cool.
Jesse Woodson James,
Woodson.
yeah,
Yeah.
was a son of Kentucky native Zeralda Cole James and her husband Robert James.
Wait,
a
what was her name?
Zeralda.
Zeralda.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
almost cool. Almost. It's almost like Zelda.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Zeralda is pretty cool.
I've never met a Zeralda in my whole fucking
yeah, I've never
life,
met.
dude,
I didn't
so
even know Zeralda was a name.
Maybe it was a name back in the day.
You'd think it would be popular since he's such a folk hero for people to name their children after her, but
no,
they
they're,
don't.
They're too busy naming their kids Khaleesi, thinking that that's going to be the hero.
Robert James is a Baptist minister and a slave-owning hemp farmer who assisted in founding William Jewell College in Liberty, Missouri. So, Jesse James's father, a Renaissance man, I guess, of sorts. There's a picture here, I think, that we can put up. This is actually one of the best pictures I could find of Zeralda.
Zeralda. She
And
looks
this is-
like, I never knew there was a name Zeralda, but now that I'm seeing this,
Yeah.
bitch looks like a
Dude,
Zeralda.
I know what you're thinking, though, really, TJ.
What's that?
I can fucking read your thoughts, dude. You're thinking Gilf right here, dude.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Let's be honest.
why does that even need to be mentioned? I mean, obviously.
Look, I was gonna point out to people watching, they might not be able to read your mind like I can, TJ. But
Hey,
Well, they're all thinking the same
Why are
thing
you
I am
two
at this
squabbling
point.
over this woman? Why aren't you letting the call of the South take you over?
that's why I'm letting.
We're not
happen,
here
dude.
to just discuss any old topic, gentlemen. We're here to discuss a true American outlaw. Possibly the first, the greatest that there ever will be.
Neat.
Give it some reverence, TJ.
Reverence. Revere.
Standing next to each other here are Jesse James and his brother.
Which one's which?
Hard to know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. I think that Jesse is on the right, brother on the left, because his brother was a little older than him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the one on the left certainly looks like the tougher of the
Obviously,
two brothers.
these are not great pictures.
So in 1850, their father, Robert James, traveled to California to be a preacher in the gold mining camps that were popping up everywhere. Not long after that, he became sick and he died. And Zeralda and all the children, including Jesse and Frank, were plunged into these kind of just desperate financial straits. Zeralda did what a lot of women had to do back then and
Prostitution?
managed. No,
Oh.
no, she wasn't that type
Wishful
of woman,
thinking,
TJ.
Wishful thinking. On
You
your
know
part.
what? This was not a West Coast woman, TJ.
Right.
This was a woman of the South.
Right.
She found herself a good husband of means.
Cool.
And moved her children in with him.
All right.
Smirch the name of Zeralda James in my presence, TJ.
I mean, she looks like she'd give
I'll
up the
slap
pussy
the
for
I'll
some
slap the
cheddar.
hair off the other side of your head, bitch.
You might have to have a
Damn.
fucking duel with Paul, dude.
Damn.
You and Paul are gonna have to fucking duel. Decide.
You know what?
this
I just
matter of
can't help
honor.
it, dude.
I will slap the hair off the other side of your bald ass motherfucking dome, bitch.
Zeralda's hot. I don't know what to fucking say, man.
Dude,
Well, there's a way that you can say that, sir.
How do I say that?
You can say, sir,
Sir?
that woman there
That woman
is
there.
sturdy.
What was the last?
Sturdy.
Sturdy? Sir? That woman there is sturdy.
Big through the hips.
Got big old birthing hips on that
Yes,
woman.
sir. Now that, sir, would be a gentleman's comment about a lady of repute.
All right. Good to know.
Correct you, sir. The next time I correct you, sir, it will be with my iron and not my voice.
Hey, I'm just trying to fucking...
I will draw, sir. I will draw.
What are you going to draw?
I will draw a picture of a penis going into your mouth, sir.
You've already done that.
I will do it again, sir.
Damn it. No. 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 All right.
So anyway,
Who's this?
we're not. Hold on. Go back, TJ.
We're not on this yet?
Why are you hitting fast forward, motherfucker?
I don't know.
He always does that, dude.
I'm trying to keep up with your fucking
TJ,
shit,
calm
but-
down. Calm down.
So Zeralda marries a wealthy older man, moves in with him, but he disliked the James children and sent them to live with some other family.
Right.
Zeralda soon left that marriage and returned to her first husband. So we're talking about before Jesse James's biological father.
Right.
The ultimate cuck, the guy that's, takes her back after she's been married twice and has a bunch of kids by him. But he did. And that's where they kind of settled in 1855. She'd have 4 more children with him. It was a farm life. After Frank and Jesse grew up to become outlaws, Zeralda, who was known as Iron-Willed, remained their staunch supporter until her death.
That's cool. It's
So
pretty cool when you can turn to a life of,
Yeah.
like, crime and your mom is still like, them boys, they're so good at crime.
I will tell you this, it's also a very Southern kind of idea. Like, mothers down here, they don't care what the fuck you've done. They're going to be behind you 100%. They're always going to back your play. And
Did you help the Nazis commit genocide? That was wrong.
Ba-
the way
baby?
you killed all those people, baby, it was beautiful.
baby, I do not. I want to repeat, I do not condone the way you genocided them Nazis. Now step out of mama's way. My son didn't do shit. My son didn't do shit. Them Nazis deserved it. Whatever. So
I don't think anyone would be.
well, I meant
if you murdered.
I meant the
Nazis.
Jews.
The Jews.
God damn it. I get them mixed up. Sorry.
You get them mixed up sometimes.
Of course you do,
I think
Paul.
that was actually more offensive, but okay.
Damn.
Yeah. I'm just looking to give offense.
Nazi genocide. I think people are fine with that, though.
So she wed for the 3rd time. She rewed her first husband. So what happened is that Frank's a couple years older than Jesse. The Civil War is raging at this point. Frank obviously wants to join the rebel cause and does so. Joins some outlaw raider type of guys.
Cool.
And Jesse was kind of pissed off that he couldn't go and do that right away. He wasn't old enough.
Right.
But as soon as he came of age,
So I think it's time for this picture now, actually.
it is. He took up with this guy here, who, by all accounts, was just over 5 foot tall. His name is Archie Clement.
Yeah. You gotta worry about them short motherfuckers.
No, this
man.
guy was a badass for nobody would fuck with Archie Clement. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So he, when Jesse finally could join up, he ended up in a small gang, kind of overseen by Archie Clement. He was utterly ruthless. He was not much older than Jesse, and Jesse admired Clement and followed his fellow teenager into the band of Bloody Bill, who we'll cover here in a minute. Clement quickly established himself as a chief lieutenant in that new band, distinguishing himself even in the bloodthirsty group for his savagery. So Clement became known by authorities as Bill Anderson's scalper and head devil. So
Jesus. Okay.
Times were cooler back then, huh?
well, I mean, from a certain, I guess if you're one of the ones being
Fuck,
scalped,
dude.
probably not.
Right.
Scalp his enemies. Okay, well, sounds like a decent
By
guy.
the way, it kind of looks like TJ might have had a run-in with this guy and got away from him.
Yeah. But you know what? I got away.
Did we
Yeah.
figure that out, though, TJ?
I got away with half
me and
my
Paul
scalp,
started growing our
so.
hair long, and TJ's like, I can't compete anymore.
Well, I kept seeing comments in the comment section like, Scotty looking more and more like TJ all the time. I'm like, bullshit. Bullshit.
You're replaceable, TJ.
And so I had to do something crazy.
So evidence that, and the reason I started covering this guy is 'cause I wanted to try and find a path for Jesse James from farm boy to fucking bank robbing, fucking rootin' tootin' outlaw. And this seems to have really been his earliest kind of exposure to that.
Yeah, so he loved this guy.
Yeah,
This
being
was,
exposed to
his hero, basically.
banditry.
Jesse later described Archie Clement as one of the noblest boys and the most promising military boy of this age, and proudly called himself one of Anderson's best men. So he was clearly looked up to this guy, even though he was only a couple years older than Jesse at the time,
right?
Due to his extreme brutality. He was a scalper, a head taker, the guy that would, like, if somebody joked about, I want that bitch's eyeballs, he'd just go pluck them out of the corpse's head and put them in your pocket, you know what I mean? That, just a real butcher. And Jesse James cut his teeth riding raids with this guy in the band run by a guy who had a nickname that leaves no doubt as to what kind of military commander he was, Bloody Bill Anderson. You're looking at him right here. He looks like a vampire.
Yeah, he does.
And actually, there's some evidence.
Anderson.
There's some evidence you may not be looking at an artifact of like bad photography in his weird eyes. William Anderson was a tall, bearded man with piercing eyes, often described as burning coals. So,
okay.
I could find some literature to back that, and maybe he just had flaming, burning eyes. I don't know. I actually found some pictures where you could see his
pupils.
pupils.
Here's an actual picture of the devil here. So.
Is
this his death photo?
Yeah, and whatever, TJ.
Well, I thought
you always have to hit fast forward by 3 on every fucking.
You said you had pictures of him with his pupils, so I was like, oh,
I said
let's
I
go look
saw
at that.
pictures of him with his pupils. This is the coolest, biggest picture I could find of him, so I
pull
pulled
those.
that.
Well, you made it sound like you pulled him, but he's obviously dead here.
TJ, you're fired.
This is like
You're
one
fired,
of those
TJ.
like pictures
You're gone,
they take
TJ.
after
You're
you.
gone.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Always
in a
rushing,
second,
TJ. Stop being a fucking Russian, dude.
Jesus fucking Christ.
You're rushing me, TJ. You fucking goddamn agent of Russia.
I did nothing wrong.
You fucking goddamn Russian troll bot.
I did nothing wrong.
Yeah,
Paul
did.
said he pulled pupil pictures. And
I
there
didn't
weren't.
say
No,
I
you didn't.
pulled.
Well, you made it sound. You implied it.
You implied it. I'm right. I'm
Oh my
damn
god,
right.
dude!
You
Did you take
implied
off
it.
half your brain with your hair,
You
dude?
implied it, Paul.
Somebody
You're like, I did
check
find
TJ.
pictures with his
She's
pupils,
right.
and then there's another picture.
Did you damage your occipital lobe, sir? Can you follow my finger, TJ? How many fingers am I holding up right now?
How many fingers am I holding up right now?
3.
Dude, TJ's fucking temporal lobe was definitely damaged.
Temporal lobe.
So this guy came from a family of horse thieves. He dressed
Cool.
with panache, and when the Civil War started, he joined the secessionists immediately. Although
violence.
organized Confederate forces were driven from the state by early 1862, those still wanting to fight for the South could join several groups of bushwhackers operating in the countryside. These ruthless guerrillas attacked federal soldiers, terrorized Union civilians, often wearing the uniforms of their opponents and paying scant attention to the rules of war. They spread fear throughout Missouri. Anderson's group, only 80 men, was among the most notorious, known for decorating their saddles with the scalps of slaughtered foes. Anderson had never been one to abide by moral conventions, but when his sister was killed in a prison collapse in Kansas City and 2 others were injured, the bushwhacker became completely unhinged. So he was given the nickname Bloody Bill. He would charge into battle heedless of the odds, showing no quarter and torturing prisoners by cutting off their ears and other parts.
Cool.
So just an out and out, and you know, once again, this was after the tide had turned against the South.
You know what I love so much about this is how much he looks the part.
I mean, well, see, the thing is, TJ, he created the part. The part exists because of men that dressed like him. Like he's
Right.
the template for the part. He is the part.
I mean, he wasn't the first crazy butcher and psychopath
No,
in history, but he definitely does.
He I'm talking about just the way the figure he cuts.
Yeah,
yeah.
He's saying you have that perception because of these people actually exist.
Right, yeah. But he looks, I mean,
but
you know, he totally looks the part of that guy. I mean, this guy back here, you know, whatever, he looks kind of cool, but this motherfucker,
and of course, him being the ringleader just makes total sense. Just like
Yeah.
in the group of fucking brutal thugs, like who's gonna be the leader? The most.
he's the
brutal.
most brutalist
Yeah,
thug of them all.
And keep
the
in
guy that
mind,
gives the least amount of fucks.
you know, his chief lieutenant is a little dude that's scantly over 5 feet tall that'll kill you dead any way that, you know, Bloody Bill tells you to. So
Right.
it's a very good villain-toady relationship, you know.
Yeah.
And, of course, Jesse James is right here in the thick of all this.
I
And this
believe
was,
you mean hero, by the way.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, you're right, sir. Southern hero. All of this kind of culminates, and they were very notorious. They raided and killed and you know, disrupted supply chains, but it all came to an end one day because of Centralia. So on September 27th, 1864, roughly 80 guerrillas under the command of William T. Bloody Bill Anderson stopped a train outside of Centralia, Missouri. They then asked for a volunteer from among the Union soldiers on the train. Fully expecting to be executed, Sergeant Thomas M. Goodman stepped forward. Instead of killing the sergeant, however, the guerrillas shot the line of 22 unarmed Union soldiers. They set fire to the train and left the civilian passengers to deal with the mutilated bodies. What became known as the Centralia Massacre stands as a noteworthy example of intense violence directed against non-combatants that periodically characterized the Missouri-Kansas border war. So there was a lot of this going on.
So the one guy that thought he was volunteering to be killed was the one that
was left alive,
spared to tell the tale, basically.
Yeah. Because of this massacre, the band was pursued by Union authorities, obviously. Anderson's escape from Centralia involved the looting and torturing of Union sympathizers and several instances of reported rape, particularly in a raid on Glasgow, Missouri. He basically cut a bloody swath until finally Union forces under Lieutenant Colonel Samuel P. Cox, former Army scout, finally caught up with the Anderson and his approximately, I guess by then, 150 men on October 27th, 1864. A brief battle ensued in which Anderson was shot in the head and died instantly. Union soldiers photographed Anderson's body and paraded it through the streets of Richmond, Missouri, burying it nearby. It was later reinterred. Cox, the man that oversaw the operation that caught him, became a Union hero.
Yeah.
So, this happens right around the time that the South has lost the war. Reconstruction is starting. And a lot of the people that were in these bands were more than happy to call it quits, go home, especially after, Bloody Bill died and a lot of these bands were being broken up by the Union. Most of these guys went home.
Right.
And kind of resigned themselves to whatever their new fate was as members of the Union again. But a few still felt salty about things. And there's a lot of evidence that Jesse James felt salty, in particular about the death of the man you see here, Bloody Bill, who he looked at as a father figure. And there's a lot of speculation that is what kind of drove Jesse James into a life of non-military crime, where he's, more of a bandit and less of a soldier.
He wasn't willing to give up that lifestyle.
Right. And he had a vendetta against the people that killed Bloody Bill. He wanted to see them all dead.
Damn Union, them damn Yankees done it. They done it. Why they done it?
So there's a little bit of dispute as to whether or not this next part is true, and I'm going to try and highlight any of these where the facts are disputed. There's probably going to be quite a few of them. It is possible that Jesse James, along with his brother Frank and possible early members of the Young Gang, or the Younger Gang, that eventually became the James Younger Gang, might have been the first modern bank robbers in history.
Cool.
So there was, or at least American history. I'm not sure if they were the first in the world, but there's one other kind of bank robbery in American history that happened in the late 1700s, and it involved a dude like forging a key and letting himself into a vault at night and taking a bunch of money. We're talking about the stick-up.
We're talking about the group of armed men going to the bank and say, give us all the fucking
the
money.
bandanas around their faces,
Right.
Give us the money.
Which still happens to this day. Still so they Jesse James and his posse
Possibly the progenitors of it.
possibly invented the bank robbery.
Now, you can see here that
As
the
we know
building has a Jesse James Bank Museum on it, but it's actually disputed by some historians whether or not Jesse James or Frank James were even present at this. But let's go through the principal facts of the day.
Okay.
The Clay County Savings and Loan in Liberty, Missouri was robbed on February 13th, 1866, making it one of the earliest documented daylight bank robberies. The robbers escaped with at least $60,000, which I looked it up is equivalent to it's like just over $1 million
Damn.
in 2018.
Yeah, you don't get that much at a bank robbery
Right.
today. You don't get $1 million in a bank.
They killed a bystander standing outside the bank. It's unclear why. Whether it was like in a shootout with somebody else that had, like a citizen that had pulled a gun, or whether they were just firing their guns willy-nilly and somebody caught a bullet.
Or if they were just like, I don't like that guy.
Yeah,
Boom.
pow. The robbery is believed to have been conducted by a group of former Confederate guerrillas, possibly led by Jesse James or Archie Clement, who we mentioned before.
Right.
Which later became known as the James Younger Gang. So here's the principal accounts of the day. I found this. So on the afternoon of February 13th, 1866, some 10 or 12 persons rode into town and milled outside the Clay County Savings Association building. 2 of the riders entered the bank, which was staffed only by the head cashier, Greenup Bird, and his son, William Bird, who was a bank clerk. After asking to change a $10 bill, the men drew revolvers and demanded money. Williams loaded the robbers' feed sack with gold, currency, bonds, and tax stamps. The 2 birds were herded, birds meaning, their last name.
Yeah.
The 2 birds were herded into the bank vault, and the robbers left the building. As the robbers mounted to ride away, shots were fired. Accounts differ. Problem with mounting the horse caused a commotion during which someone opened fire, or perhaps one of the gang fired without any sort of provocation whatsoever.
Just for fun.
George Jolly Wymore, a 19-year-old student from William Jewell College who was across the street, was killed by the bullet. The gang rode away, pursued after a time by a posse of outraged townspeople who could procure arms and horses. The entire maneuver lasted no more than 15 minutes. In total, the robbers collected at least $60,000. Some reports say they also collected government bonds worth $42,000 to $45,000, $518 in tax stamps, gold, silver coins, and banknotes. If that's true, the haul was closer to $2 million or more.
Cool.
So not only was it the first the first real documented stick-up daylight robbery, but it was a $2 million score.
That's a huge success.
Yeah.
Possibly.
That's crazy.
And it's crazy because, like they said, all this money is in there and there's only 2 dudes in this fucking bank.
And clearly people, there was obviously some thought about security, but people were not expecting 10 people just to walk in the bank with guns and be like, give us all your money.
Right.
And by the time the townspeople know what hit them and go riding after them,
15
sure they're
minutes.
long fucking gone.
It's 15 minutes.
Well, dude, a lot of times, this is how crime works. It's always, often on the cutting edge because people are like, what are the weaknesses in whatever culture, society you live in? Now it's like hacking. People don't take care of their information online, so they steal your information that way. This way it was just like think about it. 2 guys and like the equivalent of $2 million. That's just such a juicy target for these guys.
Right. So the bank offered $5,000 reward for the recovery of the money, which is laughable.
Sure, that was a
attempts to
success.
track the robbers were hindered by snow that covered their tracks. Articles in local newspapers implicated both former Confederate bushwhackers and Kansas redlegs, I guess other types of rebels in Kansas of the crime. Later, some townspeople admitted to recognizing some of the robbers, but withholding the information out of fear. The robbers were never caught, and no money was ever recovered. The association eventually settled with creditors for 60 cents on the dollar and closed. So it literally closed the bank down.
Damn, dude, they fucking shut a bank down.
Yep. So they literally closed the town bank. They scored so much fucking money.
Awesome.
Wow.
But it's still disputed, like I said, whether this was Archie Clement that did this or some other band that was kind of maybe later on joined up with Jesse, or if Jesse and Frank were actually here.
They were.
The first time we know for an absolute fact that Jesse and Frank pulled a job, because they made sure that we knew, was in Gallatin. So on December 7th, 1869, Jesse and Frank rode in during daylight. They shot an unarmed cashier and made off with some worthless paper.
Awesome.
They made a daring escape through the midst of a posse sent to capture them. Later, they declared that they would never be taken alive. For the first time, the newspapers mentioned Jesse James, and he loved the attention. Soon he began tailoring his robberies to attract as much of it as possible, even leaving press releases behind sometimes.
That's awesome. He's like, it kind of reminds me, obviously a very different sort of criminal, but the Zodiac.
Right. He definitely immediately took a shine to it, and he was very lucky to kind of have a benefactor eventually in the press that we'll get to. In fact, you can put him up now if you'd like.
John Newman Edwards.
So during the 1869 bank robbery in Gallatin, the incident that first brought Jesse James public notice as an outlaw, he shot and killed the bank's cashier in an act of revenge because he thought the man was Samuel Cox, commander of the pro-Union militia troops who had murdered guerrilla leader Bloody Bill Anderson in October 1864. So that guy actually owned the bank.
Yeah, and he was not.
So
He was not,
Cox,
Cox or
whatever,
whatever the
yeah,
fuck,
Samuel Cox went on to buy this bank, and Jesse James hit this bank specifically with the idea not only to rob it, but to kill Cox, who he mistook for some cash poor fucking schmo that was
Random
working there.
cashier.
You've
Right.
done it.
After the deadly heist, an influential pro-Confederate newspaper editor in Missouri, John Newman Edwards, befriended Jesse and went on to promote the former bushwhacker as a hero and defiant Southern patriot for the Reconstruction era.
Also to sell more papers.
James would himself sometimes write letters, although it's disputed whether it was actually him that wrote them, to newspapers in which he defended his actions. A lot of people speculate that the newspapers themselves wrote them. Though his articles and editorials through his articles and editorials, Edwards was responsible for helping to create the image of Jesse James as a Robin Hood figure who robbed from the rich and gave the poor, an image historians obviously say is a myth.
Right. So he was robbing.
He was
robbing people to have money for himself and to have revenge, and he didn't mind at all the attention and the hero status that was
obviously
afforded
it
to him
helped
by,
him too,
yeah.
because it gave him shelter. Like if Jesse James was in town, if he's like seen as a Robin Hood and he pulls into a little town, who's going to go to the marshal and tell him Jesse James is here?
Right.
Nobody.
And not only that, but if as long as he sticks to towns
this
that
guy
have
definitely
Confederate
has-
leanings and sympathies, they would view him as this great hero who's still fighting the good fight.
I pulled that information about this guy simply because Jesse James is still seen this way in a lot of places, especially down here.
Yeah.
In the South, Jesse James is still kind of revered as a folk hero. Until the 50s and a little beyond, there were comic books extolling his virtues about how he'd ride in and kill the corrupt sheriff and
Well, that's why
save
this
the
guy
girl.
was so
and-
brilliant, because he recognized this is a story that had public interest, and for people with those kind of leanings, it was just like the perfect sort of figure to hold up and sell. I mean, like, there's also the dime store stories about these guys, like their fucking escapades, their daring raids, and of course, obviously, like you said, it made them look like the good guys. They were
Right.
portrayed as heroes.
So Jesse and Frank really wasted no time in capitalizing on this positive press. They formed the James Younger Gang by joining up with Cole, Jim, and Bob Younger. Both the James brothers were a part. There's a bunch of people that were a part. I could read a bunch of names, but I don't think it would matter for me to do so. We're not covering each one individually, but there were a number of notable outlaws that became a part of this gang, and they were very good at what they did. They started knocking over banks, trains, stagecoaches, and they were known for their quickness and brutality. They became very quickly some of the most wanted men in Missouri, and in fact, the most wanted men in Missouri at the height of their crime spree. I thought it would be interesting at this point to read some excerpts from the papers, because there were wildly different ways that the news organizations covered the James Gang. Up in Chicago...
Right. I'm sure that they were probably not as popular.
Right. On October 16th, 1876, Missouri outlawry from Chicago Tribune.
Ooh. Outlawry.
Outlawry,
I like it.
yes. In Missouri, the James Younger outlaws rode into towns and robbed banks in broad daylight, stopped passenger trains, and after emptying the express safe, went through everybody on board the cars. In presence of more than 10,000 people and in broad daylight, they presented their pistols at the ticket office of the Kansas City Fair Association and forced the treasurer to hand over $10,000. They murdered officers sent to arrest them, and despite their plunderings and murders, so enlisted popular sympathy in their behalf that the reward of $25,000 for their capture remained unclaimed, though their whereabouts were well known, and in fact, instead of hiding, they paraded themselves publicly for the admiration of their fellow Missourians. Had they remained in Missouri in the end of their lives, doubtless they might with impunity have gone with their raiding of railroad trains and have been regarded with admiring pride by their fellow citizens of that commonwealth. But they extended their field of operations to Minnesota, made their attack on the Northfield Bank, committed their dastardly murder of Haywood, and to their wonderment, doubtless, they were not thereon hailed as heroic fellows who had gallantly gathered fresh laurels. So here's a very snippy, northern, obviously, Union perspective on them. Now let's hear what the
Fucking
Lexington
Yankee cocksuckers.
and I love the name of this
Besmirching
paper.
the name of Jesse James.
What do you think the Lexington Caucasian was saying around the same time?
I am going to assume something much more flattering.
So the Lexington, Missouri Caucasian, September 5th,
Brave
1874. Missouri's gay bandits. The genuine James boys and one of the youngers. In all the history of medieval knight errantry and modern brigandage, there is nothing... Oh, hold on. I'm reading this in the wrong fucking... I should do this Southern.
yeah.
In all the history of medieval knight errantry and modern brigandage, there is nothing that equals the wild romance of the past few years' career of Arthur McCoy, Frank and Jesse James, and the younger boys. Their desperate deeds during the war were sufficient to have stocked a score of ordinary novels with facts that outstripped the strung-out flights of fancy. Their fierce hand-to-hand encounters, their long and reckless scouts and forays, and their riotous jollity all combined to form a chapter without parallel in the annals of America.
Beautiful.
Oh my God.
Got more. Let's see.
This is also from the Lexington Caucasian.
All the annals of romantic crime furnish no parallel to the exploits of Missouri's bold rovers. Since Ishmael hung out his shingle 37 centuries ago in the deserts of Eden, as a dashing, untamable boss brigand, they have been unsurpassed. They've laid Aladdin in the shade and snuffed out all his marvel hatching lamps. They've eclipsed the wildest wonders of the Arabian Nights and rendered commonplace the most incredible achievements of Cid. They've made the tales of the Crusaders and the Buccaneers stale nursery croonings. Achilles and Hector, Barabbas, Rob Roy, Dick Tarpon, and 16-string Jack dwindle to ordinary marauders beside them.
wow. Lay it on a little thicker, bud.
That was in the fucking paper, y'all.
Dude,
about
like,
bank robbers.
Dude, these are love letters, dude.
These are literal. No. This is the like letter equivalent of a blowjob, like a good one with like attention paid to the balls and everything, and like a hot towel cleanup afterwards. You know, the whole nine. Holy, I've never. And it's so weird to think that was the culture then. It's like these guys really were looked at as the last vestiges of the South fighting back against the Yankees.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can't do it, but Jesse's out there doing it. And you know what? Fuck me if I'm going to call the cops on Jesse.
Oh, clearly they had popular support in these areas. I mean, they got away with it for years and years and years. I mean, they killed people, but it was like you said, it was all the public perception that people would read in newspapers and hear these stories read to them was like, these are the fucking guys. They're standing up. When you are powerless now, you have to put up with this shit you don't want to put up with. Now you have someone representing you.
So this is a list of the actual crimes committed by collided by the Pussy Liquor Gang.
Oh, yeah, man. You got to get on down that clitoris.
Yeah, this is all of the heists committed by that are attributed to the James Younger Gang during their operations. Each one of them has a little story attached, but they all started to seem a little samey. So I thought we'd look at all of them and keep in mind that adjustment that I made earlier. You know,
right, yeah.
A $40,000 score is almost $1 million.
Right.
So look at this. I mean, that first Clay Countings Association, that's 62.
And
they pick up another 2.
The same year.
They don't know how much they got from that banking house. There's $4,000, another $14,000. I mean, it just adds up. Think about these men. And the men that worked with them were fucking rich. We're talking like these were the ultimate fucking Billy Badass rich outlaws. They had more money than they knew what to do with. Look at this. Think how many millions of dollars this is.
Yeah.
Millions. And at a time where nobody had that kind of money. So you could literally buy anything in the fucking world that existed. You could pay anybody you wanted any amount of money to shut their fucking mouth about something, and they'd be dumb to say no to it. You know what I mean? Like, at this time, $1,000, if you handed somebody $1,000.
That's like set for life.
Yeah,
kinda.
it's not like set for life,
But
but
it's set for a few years at least.
And these, look at what they're trading in. Now, you'll notice that there's some conspicuous ones here, some unknown, but there's only one that's got a real conspicuous number on it. And that is the final caper of the
Zero.
James Younger gang on September 7th, 1876 at the First National Bank in Northfield, Minnesota.
Were they thwarted?
They were. So on that date, 3 men entered the town of Northfield at about 2 p.m. They were noticed because of the long linen dusters they wore, which concealed their weapons, the exceptionally fine horses they rode, attributing to that, once again, how rich these men were. Attention paid to their horses had apparently caused them to cancel a robbery attempt shortly before in Mankato, Minnesota. So I guess these horses that they had were such a fine breed that they immediately drew the eye. And,
Yeah, very conspicuous.
and they had to
horses.
abort a robbery because they'd drawn suspicion before. And some witnesses said the rather arrogant confidence with which they moved. Several townspeople, some of them former Civil War soldiers, immediately recognized the look of a guerrilla raid. One of them is even said to have shouted, "It's a St. Albans raid," which was a bank near the Canadian border robbed by Confederate agents during the war.
When you're fixing to rob the bank and you ride into town and everyone's like, "Uh-oh, raiders!"
Yeah, bank robber
It's like,
time.
"Oh shit, I think our cover is blown. We gotta
It's
get
so
out of
funny
here."
because it actually plays out in my mind when you think about it like a Western, you know?
Yeah.
It's like all these dusty, dirty people that obviously like belong in this shit little town, and all of a sudden these dudes in real nice coats on beautiful horses show up, kind of suspiciously swagger into the fucking bank. You definitely think, that's the guy that's going to fucking knock the bank over.
Yeah.
And that's what happened in this case. I mean, these people were on top of it. Much to the outlaws' surprise, the people of Northfield not only refused to cooperate with the robbery, they shot back. A lot of them shot back with deadly accuracy, and they organized huge posses that didn't give up and kept after them for days and weeks. As many as 2,000 men chased them for literally weeks.
Oh shit. Yeah, you done fucked up at that point.
And this didn't happen to them in Missouri. The guns of the Northfield town people grabbed quickly to use may have been in poor working order, but they had the advantage of range over the handguns of the robbers used. So they didn't have hidey holes here. This is not Missouri.
Right, so they never should have left Missouri, basically.
Right. So they smelled some pussy over in a state over, but they forgot they're not heroes over here. They're fucking asshole, bloody, cutthroat bandits.
Yeah, no one in Minnesota likes you.
And you can guess how that turned out for them, trying to scramble around in a state they don't know with people that all hate them.
With 2,000 fucking
Well, they couldn't rely on
armed
their
men
reputation.
on
They
their
couldn't rely on
fucking
fear
heels.
because this town, you think about it, it's like fear is such a powerful motivator. Most places they went, people said, "Yeah, just have the money. I don't want to die." But I mean, this town fighting back, 2,000 people organized to track them down. That's insane.
So the Youngers and many of the men involved in the gang were surrounded by a posse in a swamp near Madelia. They did not consider surrendering as they thoroughly believed they'd be lynched on the spot. So they came out shooting and were all shot again, with Charlie Pitts being the only one killed. To their surprise, they weren't lynched, but as Cole Younger commented upon with surprise and gratitude many times, they were treated kindly as circumstances allowed. So they were actually given some measure of justice by this mob.
So the mob did not just...
Damn, dude.
Yeah, so,
That sounds like a rare mob. Like, all right, we got you.
Yeah, especially after chasing them down for so long. Well, I'm assuming that the mob had, discussed amongst themselves what was going to be done.
Right.
And, I guess they decided, no, we're going to let justice...
The surviving
prevail or
Younger
whatever.
brothers all pled guilty to the murder charges against them, which under Minnesota law saved them from hanging. They were sentenced to life in prison and sent to the penitentiary in Stillwater, Minnesota.
So if you pled guilty to the murder, you'd get life.
Right.
Okay.
And he actually wrote a book called What My Life Has Taught Me, Cole Younger, the eldest of the Youngers.
The eldest of the Youngers.
And, I pulled a little excerpt from that. Come with me to the prison where a quarter of a century I have occupied a lonely cell. When the door swings in on you there, the world does not hear your muffled wail. There is little to inspire mirth in prison. For a man who has lived close to the heart of nature, in the forest, in the saddle, to imprison him is like caging a wild bird.
Well, you could have just pled guilty and got hanged.
Yeah.
Or not pled guilty, I guess.
Well, here's another quote from Cole Younger. The excitement that followed our sentence to state prison, which was popularly called cheating the gallows, resulted in the change in the law in that respect, Cole Younger said. So this case actually...
So they were so pissed they didn't get to hang him that they decided to change the law so they could hang people like that in the future.
Interesting little tidbit there. The Younger brothers were the last people in Minnesota that were spared the gallows with a guilty plea. So there you go.
Man, I love the fucking Wild West, dude.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
I love all these pictures, and I love all these personalities and all these weird stories. It's just so fucking cool.
I just love that there was a time when people would just fucking shoot each other and all kinds of crazy shit was going on.
A time that Minnesota was considered the fucking West.
I mean, I guess you still got some people shooting each other, but now they're all black, so it's not as fun.
Well, we also have mass shootings now. We don't have a bunch of outlaws. We have a bunch of people fucking losing their minds.
And no one ever... The problem is America's not divided on the mass shooters. Like, we need some newspapermen out there like, I think the mass shooters are heroes. But we don't have that because, it's not the same.
I don't think we're going to find that, really.
Well, we need it.
I mean, there's definitely people that believe that.
We need some crazy fuck to buy the New York Times and start printing pro-mass murder stories. Get the public divided on this shit.
TJ, maybe it can be
Maybe it can be. Raise me up some money. I want to try to recreate the Wild West in America.
So
maybe I'll go buy the Lexington Caucasian or something.
Yeah, you could do it. You could just buy a plot of land out in Kansas and build the framework of an Old West town and see if anybody comes to ride horses around.
I don't
in
think
it or
they
whatever.
will. I don't really care about the horses and shit. I just want.
Well, that came with it. You better care about horses because you're going to be wading hip deep through their shit if you're going to live in the Old West.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm just talking more about the.
So you want cars and people shooting?
Wants the spirit,
so you want now
the spirit of the Wild West. Not necessarily all the fucking old shit they had.
Right. Gotcha.
I don't know.
I like the old shit they had, personally. I like the whole thing. I do like horses.
I mean, it's all romantic. It's cool.
So this is a reprinting of a contemporary kind of book that would be sold about Jesse James. It's not.
What I want to know is how this bitch here. I mean, like, it looks like she's pointing the gun right at this dude, and it fired it. So why isn't his brain matter spattered all over this guy's face?
I could. Maybe she's firing behind him.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's just a perspective trick.
Yeah, it's an old drawing, But there were tons of these little storybooks about Jesse James's exploits by this time.
Yeah.
The James Younger gang had been shattered at this point, and Jesse and Frank. There's another little detail about that last robbery. Once again, some historians dispute that Jesse and Frank were even present at it. But the popular story is that they were there, and out of all the gang, only they escaped.
Right.
Only they managed to get out.
Because only they were wily enough.
They split off from the main body of the gang at some point, went their own way, ended up getting away. And they ended up going to Tennessee under assumed names. And Frank actually seemed to kind of thrive in Tennessee. He started like a shoe business. He started like a cobbler, or he was selling shoes or something at a shop. Started a family. And Jesse made a stab at the same shit. He got married, had a couple kids, had a house, tried to settle down and use some of that money to kind of get away from the outlaw life. Frank didn't seem to be called by it, but Jesse was restless.
Jesse's like, fuck this.
Jesse
I'm just being
was
an outlaw.
Jesse was not super happy with the domesticated husband type of life and kind of missed his time out on the road. And so eventually he returned to a life of crime. Over time, he built a gang up, and the gang's members were comprised of some outlaw guys, Ed Miller, Robert and Charlie Ford, Bill Ryan, Dick Little.
Dick Little.
I know, that's such a terrible fucking name.
No wonder he became an outlaw.
But I do want to meet James Windy Jim Cummings.
Windy Jim.
He sounds like the type of guy that I could smoke a J with. There's a bunch of... so he actually got together a bunch of outlaws, but there was a difference between this band of outlaws.
Right.
A lot of them weren't...
Because these are Tennessee outlaws.
Right. And a lot of them weren't wily old Confederate vets like his previous gang was made up. Old cutthroats from the war.
Right.
These are young, brash guys that just want to go and be rootin' tootin' cowboys that kind of want to be Jesse James. So he's collecting all these young guys on the outskirts of society that have pulled some... heists here and there that he knows about, and he brings them into the fold.
But they don't have the depth of experience at war, and I mean, obviously,
they're trying to.
He's trying to teach that to them and shit. And
right.
build up his gang again.
And this mythologizing of Jesse James to the public by publishers continued for quite some time. I pulled another picture. This is in the 50s. And this is a Jesse James comic that, you know, I mean, they were still doing this. He's the kind of outlaw with a heart of gold, rootin' tootin' guy that always kills the bad guy and manages to steal the money and get the girl, that type of thing. You know what I mean? And it's still kind of the image that he has today in a lot of places in the South. It's how people like to think of Jesse James. I know that's how I was introduced to him.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the first time hearing about Jesse James, or when I first started to get a concept of him, it was him as a Robin Hood. As a guy that was like, I'd go after the bad bankers or the guys that are abusing women or the sheriff that's drunk and shooting people for no reason. And I steal.
But really, just like, in actuality, just a typical bloodthirsty.
He was none of that.
Well,
greedy.
you kind of need those
fucking-
people because within the frameworks of society, you know, it's like these kind of things and inequalities sort of exist. And then this is a guy who's an outlier who just comes in and just fucking breaks up the social order and does what people want to do. Like, yeah, that guy is an abusive piece of shit. He's gonna get his fucking comeuppance. And this bank, you know, these fucking banks, they're fucking taking all the land. They're fucking over these common people. We're gonna knock that bank over. So it's like they create a narrative that these people are heroic and everything they're doing
is justifiable,
is
because
justifiable.
they give back to the people that need it.
Yeah.
And they only take from the people who don't need it. So, and really that is, you know, something that's pervasive to this day, despite all these facts being easy for anybody to find. You know what I mean? I'm not digging into some arcane tome of knowledge about Jesse James here.
Right.
You know, it's pretty simple to find a timeline of his crimes and what was done at them, and there's pictures of some of it.
And
You know what I
treated
mean?
objectively, not too much
But-
of it
but
really
no one-
cuts a very heroic
But no one
figure.
fucking wants that, man. No one thinks of, especially in this country of the Old West, it's like, no one wants to think of, like, he was just a guy that this was his path in life. Like, he learned it from a young age. Like, hey, look, you can live this lifestyle. And he was attracted to that lifestyle,
He
clearly.
cuts an anti-heroic figure when you look at the truth of him. If you're just a person who hates authority and hates rich people, he's an anti-heroic figure. He's a guy who's obviously on the edge of society. He's committing crimes. He's doing things that, by and right, should land him in jail, but don't, because we need people like him. You know, he cuts that kind of a figure to a lot of people still, I think. So when I was telling you earlier about how his gang wasn't made up of hardened vets, but kind of younger, greener guys, here's where it starts to become a problem. On October 8th, 1879, the gang robbed the Chicago and Alton Railroad near Glendale, Missouri, making off with about $10,000. Afterwards, Tucker Basham, a member of the gang, was captured by a posse, and he started naming accomplices.
Oh, shit.
That same year, the gang robbed 2 stores in western Mississippi, making off with $2,000 in cash in the second robbery and an unknown amount in the first. These robberies were the first in a spree of crimes as the gang continued to rob stagecoaches and trains in Missouri, Kentucky, and Alabama. So the heat started to grow because it was like over state lines and shit.
Right, so they're all over the map.
And some of
now.
the guys are going off the reservation to pull these jobs, and they're part of the gang, but it's just 2 of these young bucks running down to get $2,000 out of a store, but now the name of that gang is in that little town, and there's law enforcement there looking for, you know, you get my drift?
Yeah, the heat's building.
Somebody's naming names, and, you know, the kind of what we can tell, Jesse James becomes paranoid. He becomes increasingly paranoid about the people around him, their loyalties, and I think rightfully so.
Well, his fame has started to backfire. Like, being the famous outlaw, he's starting to realize that, like, I'm gonna get a name. I can't just go to any town and, like, you know, if I say my name, it's not like, oh, okay. It's like, oh, you're this guy?
Right. So, the robberies, let's see. The new gang was not made up of, as I said, battle-hardened guerrillas like the James Younger gang. And some of the outlaws started to get captured here and there. Others grew suspicious of each other. Their last train robbery occurred on September 7th, 1881, when they robbed a Chicago and Alton train at Blue Cut near Glendale in Missouri, and they made off with $3,000 in cash and jewelry taken from the passengers of that train. The next month, Jesse James killed Ed Miller, allegedly for talking too much.
Ed Miller being one of his
gang
members.
Yeah. So you can tell it's falling apart at this point.
Right.
Ed Miller's running his mouth drunk off in the saloon somewhere, and he had to go. He just had to go. In November 1881, Jesse moved his family to St. Joseph, Missouri, and intended to give up his life of crime. Gang member Bob Ford killed Jesse James in his home on April 3rd, 1882. And we're going to take a closer look at that, of course. The traditional story of Jesse James' death goes that Jesse James was living as Thomas Howard with his wife and his first cousin, Z Mims. So he's married his first cousin, Z Mims.
Cool.
Along
A
with
lot of fucking weird names in that family.
yeah.
A lot of Z names, dude.
Yeah.
They had 2 children, Jesse Edward James and Mary James, and they lived at 1318 Lafayette Street in St. Joseph, Missouri. On April 3rd, 1882, he removed his guns, stepped onto a chair to dust a picture with his back to his house guests, Bob and Charlie Ford, blissfully unaware that they had conspired previously with Missouri Governor Thomas T. Crittenden to kill him for reward money. Hearing the click of a pistol being cocked, Jesse began turning his head towards the ominous sound just as Bob fired a ball that tore through his brain. That's the official story, as far as I can piece it together.
The assassination of Jesse James
now
by the coward Robert Ford.
Now, we don't need to... We can watch that now if you want. There's actually a pretty good movie, and I don't know if we want to watch the whole thing, but it's made in 2007. Brad Pitt.
Starring Brad Pitt and
Casey Affleck.
Casey Affleck. And it's actually a really good movie if you like Westerns.
Ben's
a little slow.
brother. It is. I remember it.
Little
I do
dialogue
remember
heavy.
it being on the slow side. So if you're not someone who likes a slow burn, maybe not for you. But I do remember certain moments from it. I do remember the assassination moment. That movie kind of postulates it where Jesse knew he was about to be shot and kind of had accepted it because he couldn't adjust to civilian life anyway.
Which,
Yeah.
who knows?
And was kind of just like,
Who knows
okay,
if that take is true or
that's
not.
probably not. But like in the movie, he actually sees the reflection of Robert Ford behind him with the gun and just kind of has a
'cause
blissful
he's kinda
look
like-
of
he's kinda-
acceptance on his face.
Well, it's kind of like shakily holding the gun. Like he doesn't just fire right away. It's he looks at him. They kind of make almost make eye contact, and there's his reflection, and then he kills him.
Right.
But yeah, it's a pretty good movie.
So you want to take a
trailer?
little peek at it?
Yeah.
Why is there Hawaiian music playing now?
This is actually still in the Western playlist, but it does sound more Hawaiian. I agree.
We're at a luau.
The Western
His children
luau.
didn't know how their father made his living, or why they so often moved. They didn't even know their father's name. He regretted neither his robberies nor the 17 murders that he laid claim to. And on September 5th, 1881, Jesse James was 34 years old.
Can't believe I'm sitting with none other than Jesse James. Many's the night I stayed up, my eyes open, my mouth open, just reading about your escapades. They're all lies, you know. It is interesting the many ways you and I overlap. You're the youngest of 3 James boys, and I'm the youngest of 5 Ford boys. You have blue eyes, I have blue eyes. You're 5 feet 8 inches tall, I'm 5 feet 8 inches tall.
We are one.
So
Yeah.
I kind of like, when I watched this myself, I kind of went looking for any evidence that Robert Ford was like a groupie, kind of a fanboy like he's portrayed in this film.
Sure.
And I could find none. Nothing real. Now, it seems to be a popular narrative that that's why he done did it, that he just wanted to be Jesse James, but everything that I found led to this man, who, if you want to put up the next picture, TJ.
Yeah, I can do that.
This is Governor Thomas Theodore Crittenden, the man who I think really killed Jesse James.
The guy who was behind the guy who pulled the trigger.
I mean, yeah, you gotta. He paid.
But I mean,
he paid and pardoned the men who did it.
I just want to say, though, too, before we move on too far from this movie trailer, that the fact that, you know, Brad Pitt is cast as Jesse James, as, you know...
He just doesn't really cut the... I mean, I don't know. He
just-
does a good job in the part.
I'm just saying that it kind of shows that
Oh.
Jesse James is still mythologized
Oh, yeah.
to this day.
Well, not
For
only
sure.
that, like there's a lot more to this film than they show here, but like this movie, the advertising campaign just pretty much focused on Brad Pitt's performance in the movie.
Which it shouldn't have.
It's not accurate. Like looking at that, it's not an accurate representation.
The
of the
movie really centers way more on Casey Affleck's
Yes.
character.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like the movie kind of. I think that's why people were disappointed with the film, was that it kind of like almost sold itself as a Jesse James biopic, and then you go into it, and it's not.
Jesse James is he's a secondary character in the movie. I mean, obviously he cuts an imposing figure and stuff, and he lords over the movie, but Casey Affleck's character is way more the focus, but whatever.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
But this guy, is this guy even in the fucking movie?
He is.
James.
He doesn't play a huge role.
But in reality, he did play a huge role,
Yes.
as Paul is about to let us know.
When Crittenden first came into office, the offenses of Jesse James and his gang had put Missouri into a state of fear and turmoil. National headlines portrayed Missouri as an unsafe region where gangs of outlaws robbed banks and trains and killed innocent civilians.
I just want to say that as someone who's been to Missouri several times,
It's still that.
It is still that to this day. So.
Crittenden implemented a strategy to rid the state of outlaw activity, restore order, and improve Missouri's national reputation. He secured money from the railroads and offered substantial rewards for the capture and conviction of Jesse and Frank James. His proclamation resulted in Robert Ford killing Jesse James in 1882. Crittenden pardoned the Ford brothers after they were tried for murder and found guilty. Frank James surrendered to Governor Crittenden in Jefferson City on October 5th, 1882, and was put in prison. So both of the James boys were eventually brought low by this one bullet fired by this one man who was after the substantial fat fucking reward that Crittenden was offering for the successful capture of these people.
Yeah, and it says here he was applauded by many for putting an end to Jesse James and his reign of terror, but he was also criticized for conspiring to kill a private citizen.
Right, which is an important thing to note here. This is a governor kind of de facto authorizing the extrajudicial killing of a private citizen without a trial.
Right. But, a private citizen that had basically embarked on a multi-decade reign of fucking violence and bloodshed.
And it's certainly a loophole not available to most citizens. If you know your fucking neighbor's a bad guy, walk up, you shoot him in the head. You don't get to just get found guilty of murder and instantly pardoned and given $5,000.
Like if I went out tonight and fucking found some dude that had murdered some people and shot him in the fucking head, I'm still going to be charged with murder.
You'd go to jail.
Well, capitalism has an efficient way of solving its problems, and this is obviously affecting commerce in Missouri, which is the one thing you can't do in America. If you fuck with big business, they're going to make sure you're dead. He went to the big businesses of the time, the railroads, and said, "Give me some money, we'll take care of this motherfucker," and they did.
Yeah. So it's interesting to note now that we've reached the end of Jesse James's life that there is still a significant conspiracy community that believes with every fiber of their being that Jesse James was not killed on that day by Robert Ford and that he faked his death so that he could blend into life and live his life out.
Probably claim the reward for himself.
The most quote-end-quote compelling piece of evidence that I found to support that is this picture that TJ has put up here, which is a family photo of the James family. You can see Zeralda back there in the second row, right towards the middle left.
I think I can tell which one's her.
You see her?
100%.
I mean, he's got eyes only for her.
Behind the man in the white suit sitting. The lady direct. That's Zeralda. You've got cousins and uncles and aunts of Jesse James. But there's one man sitting in a very prominent position in this photo. The rather dashing, mustachioed man sitting to the right, our right, her left, of the woman in the center of the photo, front row. You see him there on the ground, sitting cross-legged with his hat on her lap?
Enhanced.
Yep.
Well, wouldn't you know? Who's that woman sitting there in the middle there, TJ? Who do you think that is?
I don't know. Is it Jesse's
that would be
wife?
Jesse James's wife. And what kind of comfortability would a man have to set his hat in the lap of a grieving woman on the day of her husband's funeral? Now, I'm going to ask you a question, Scotty. There is one person in this photo that has not been identified. Nobody really knows who he is to the family. Do you want to guess who that man is?
I'm gonna go with that man right in front of us.
You're
Paul.
absolutely right. That
Front
man,
row to the right.
That man sitting very comfortably up against the widow of Jesse James on the day of his horrible, horrible funeral. I'm sure they're all very sad. Who feels comfortable enough to take his hat off, set it right in her lap.
I will say none of them look very sad, dude.
Yeah.
Nobody really seems to know who that man is. In this photo.
I think I know.
But a lot of people think it might be Jesse James himself committing the ultimate fuck you by attending his own funeral as a member of Jesse's family.
That's beautiful, man.
There was a poem that turned into a folk song written about Jesse James. In fact, there are a number of songs that have been written that reference Jesse James or about him.
And I want to say my dad, as a dude who was born and raised in the South, did have an admiration for Jesse James. And when he saw that movie, we just saw part of the trailer for, his criticism was that he basically thought it humanized Robert Ford too much and didn't portray him as enough of a piece of shit. So,
well, I kind of tend to agree for that. I like Robert Ford having a meltdown or a crisis of conscience or whatever you want to call that, and then taking the money at the end felt better in the movie than what was probably true. He just, you know, and as soon as he found out that this guy whose name he thought was this other name is Jesse James, he heard that there was a $5,000 bounty on his head, and he conspired with his brother to pop him as soon as they could.
kill him.
So there's a stanza from that poem I want to read to you guys.
Yeah.
It was Robert Ford, that dirty little coward. I wonder how does he feel? For he ate of Jesse's bread, and he slept in Jesse's bed, and then he laid poor Jesse in his grave. Poor Jesse had a wife to mourn for his life, 3 children, they were brave. But that dirty little coward that shot Mr. Howard has laid poor Jesse in his grave.
Wow.
So
Poor innocent Jesse James.
And they actually
dude.
performed that in a bar in that movie. I think it's actually Nick Cave.
right.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that, you know, even his death made him kind of a martyr to
Right.
some people. That, you know, it was a very cowardly way to kill a man, shoot him in the back of the head with his back turned. And, you know, no...
His death, Paul?
Well, his assumed...
Alleged death.
His
alleged
his
death.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, death in quotation marks.
Don't you guys know no one really famous ever truly dies? Doesn't happen.
I believe that Jesse James lives on to this very day.
Him and Elvis are probably smoking a fucking doobie, man,
Yep.
right now.
So I actually was able to find a conspiracy site that was presentable and readable and written well enough to pull some from here. We'll go to that in a minute there, TJ. That's the movie list for him. Okay. So this is from a conspiracy site that purports that Jesse James faked his death.
All right, let's hear it.
It says, tabloid journalism was alive and well in Jesse James's day and operating in the same way, just sensationalizing a complete fabrication of untruths. That's an interesting sentence. This certainly holds true with Professor James E. Starr's 1995 exhumation and subsequent DNA testing of Jesse James's purported grave. The DNA results are highly touted as proving with science that Jesse died and is buried just as history reports, but the truth of the matter is they proved absolutely nothing. The authors of the paper did a great job of clearly stating that while strongly suggestive, the results are not absolutely conclusive. And I actually found some scientists took a look at this in 2001 after DNA science had matured a little bit, and they had this to say. So you take this for whatever you want to take it for. Do the mtDNA results prove that the exhumed remains are those of Jesse James? The answer to this question must be no.
Case closed. Case closed.
Still alive, dude.
As there's always the possibility, however remote,
Pah.
that the remains are from a different maternal relative of Jesse James or from an unrelated person with the same mtDNA sequence. However, it should be emphasized that most mtDNA results are in complete agreement with the other scientific investigations of the exhumed remains. There is no scientific basis whatsoever for doubting that the exhumed remains are those of Jesse James. The burden of proof now shifts to those who, for whatever reason, choose to still doubt the identification. The mtDNA results reported herein provide a standard which other claimants to the legacy of Jesse James must now satisfy. So
Well, you know what?
That's what scientists have to say on the matter. Case
Well, you know
closed
what?
in their eyes.
Science is full of shit on this one.
But you know what?
There's no way Jesse James was shot in the back.
I ain't trying to talk to no scientist.
Motherfucker's lying and getting me pissed. Fucking Jesse James. How does he work?
But I will remind everybody that however fucking angrily that last part played out, that paragraph does begin with, you know...
The answer must be no.
Right. The answer must be no.
Does it prove it? Can we prove they're his remains? Absolutely. Beyond a shadow of a doubt? Hell no, we cannot. Jesse James lives, y'all.
She goes on to conclude, and this is a woman that wrote this. She had a blog with this on it. No one knows the complete, true story of Jesse James. Much of the historical version of his life and death is based on hearsay from the very individuals who are trying to protect him. The traditional version of his death is based on nothing but folklore. If Jesse did not die, as history reports, the domino effect begins. Z. Mims was not his wife. Jesse Edwards James was not his son. Mary James was not his daughter, and so on down the line. Most experts believe that Jesse James died just as history reports, but they cannot definitively prove that he did without a valid DNA test result. There are enough dissenters to make it an intriguing idea, and if anyone could have pulled it off, it would have been Jesse James.
Hell yeah.
So that's all I've got in the
like-
life and times of Jesse James.
That's just like the unfalsifiable hypothesis kind of thing. Like, you can't 100% prove what happened. Like, look, sure, we don't know the exact version of events, but, I mean, with history, that's always the case. I mean, we've covered that with so many episodes where it's like, here's what people believe, then here's what we actually know. And what we actually know is very fucking little.
Right.
So, I mean, like, of course the gaps can be filled in by human imagination. That's only natural. History is written in such ways. Like, people that view history as, like, this is history. It's, like, right here. It's set in stone. That's all it is. Like, that's wrong. That's
me tell you
totally
something,
fucking
Scotty.
false to believe that.
Let me tell you something, Scotty.
What?
What you know about Jesse James, do you think he could have been shot in the back, Scotty?
Yes.
You think that Jesse James could have been shot in the fucking back?
No way. Not
Yes.
a chance. Not a
You know
chance.
what? Deadwood did that same shit with Wild Bill.
Wild Bill, yeah.
Where they made it like he knew he was going to get shot because he was just too badass to not know, but he had accepted it.
He accepted his fate, dude.
Like, why can't we just admit that anybody can be shot in the fucking back?
It's because they're badasses, dude. No one wants the
No one wants the badass to get taken
If the
out like that.
badass gets taken out, it's like him
Unless
just
they've
saying,
got some Zen, like,
It's
Obi-Wan
enough.
Kenobi self-sacrifice
strike
shit.
me down,
you
and
know?
I'm more powerful than you could ever imagine. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I have a Zen acceptance of my death. I totally see that dude behind me pointing a gun at my head.
Well, it's
It's
always
just-
like,
but
it's
I
always the
have
twilight of their
decided
life. Like, they're
that I
past,
will allow him to kill me.
like, they're past their prime. They're kind of these figures that are just larger than life, and it's like they look back and like, you know what? It's my time. I'm ready. I want to die before I fucking get too old. You know, I'm done with this life.
Well, you heard the Lexington Caucasian earlier.
Right.
They compared these guys to Achilles, to
Didn't compare.
fucking-
No, they said he blew all those motherfuckers
right.
away.
That's what I mean. And, you know, that's an ignoble end. It's actually
Right.
the end that both Wild Bill Hickok and Jesse James likely came to. Shot right in the back. But it's not the way people want them to go out. They want them to go down in a hail of bullets, trying to rob a train, rootin' and tootin', and it's just their last gunfight. That's how they want these guys to go out. It's portrayed over and over again in these movies that we get, which you can bring that list up if you want. There's just an absurd amount of movies. And I found this really cool list that's kind of color-coded. So if you read real quick the color coding at the top. Red
So,
type is
yeah.
a documentary about him.
Okay.
And anything in blue is not directly about him, but features him.
Yeah.
Right? Or it's about, you know, he's in it. So, but not a central figure in it. So just look at all this shit. I mean, it's in descending order. So starting with
Right.
the most recent example,
And
which
I'm sure
is-
that as
and they're
far-
probably more recent
As we
examples.
get to the golden age of westerns, I'm sure that it's a lot. Yeah, you see in the 50s.
I mean, it
and
just
40s
goes on and
shit.
on and on and on and on, man.
Yeah,
He continues to be a cultural kind of touchstone for Americans. I don't know how he's perceived outside of America. I couldn't really find a whole lot of foreign coverage of Jesse James that wasn't just like, here's 10 facts you didn't know about bloody American outlaw Jesse James or whatever the fuck, you know.
fucking
Just
British
total
people
garbo.
suck. Such garbage.
So yeah, but
them Brits.
you know, maybe some of our British patrons can chime in on Patreon or.
By the way, I was kind of curious about the Weekly Caucasian.
Oh yeah. Did
and,
you go look it up? Is it still in print?
No.
No.
What?
Absolutely not. It actually ceased
Fail.
publication in 1875, so hasn't been in print for a while.
I don't know why. With that fucking like Shakespearean poetry they were writing.
I know. It seemed like a pretty awesome paper. I was thinking about getting a subscription if it was still around, because I am. Well, I'm Caucasian. I don't know if you guys know that about me.
But
I think,
Caucasian how do you know they're not
so.
referring to the Caucasian mountains, the Caucasus Mountains? You know,
Because it was a racist paper in Lexington.
What?
So I'm pretty sure.
Was it really a racist paper, TJ?
was it really a racist paper, sir?
I'm pretty sure.
Or was it the only paper that had the balls to lift up the hero that was Jesse James out
TJ,
there fighting for the South?
One of the two.
These journalists were
sure.
fighting for the truth, TJ. And
Oh,
that's
you
what
know
they're
what?
Going for.
It didn't really go away. It just got absorbed into the Lexington Weekly Intelligencer.
Yeah,
Oh,
racism
okay,
just
got
gets its own section now,
But
boys.
that also folded in
I know why-
1891.
It's not the whole
so-
paper. It's just part of the paper now.
I'll tell you what, TJ. Hector himself, from ancient times, saw Jesse James one time after he was killed in the afterlife. Dropped to his knees and sucked Jesse's dick right there on the spot. And you know who come along, TJ? Alexander the Great. And he saw Jesse James getting blown by Hector. And he just couldn't fucking contain himself. He pulled out his sword and gutted himself right there on the spot, denying himself an afterlife, TJ. Because he knew never be as badass as Jesse.
Hell no.
And you know what happened after that, TJ?
What?
Jesus Christ saw Jesse James finishing up his blowjob with Hector. Tried to pull his dick out and get Hector to suck his dick. And Hector was like, fuck you, who are you again?
Wow, dude.
He committed
The
suicide,
ultimate
too.
Fucking slap down.
Jesus done killed himself. Sorry, Christians, he ain't coming back. Because he saw Jesse James getting head from Hector himself. And then was denied that same blowjob.
Yeah, Jesus isn't good enough to get... Like, if you had sucked Jesse James's dick, there ain't no way you're going to sully your lips with Jesus's nasty fucking dick after that.
Not only that, but your jaw is going to be worn thin. Because let me tell you something,
You're
TJ.
lucky if your jaw is still attached at that
Jesse
point.
James was hung like a horse.
Yeah. Most horses were envious of
Like
Jesse
a
James's fucking cock.
goddamn fucking mule, TJ.
Shit, yeah.
That's why I dispute the fact that Jesse James ever fathered a woman. There's no way that he ever fit that monster into a vagina. No way.
Yeah, I think what he would do is he'd just use her and she'd have to like grab it with her body like a
Yes.
koala,
Yeah.
and then he'd
He'd
move
use her as
up
a
and
fleshlight.
down,
Yeah.
and then afterwards he'd just take a scoop of like the gallons and gallons of cum.
Yes.
And just kind of
I mean,
cram it in that pussy.
Look, I didn't see
you
any
know?
pictures of Jesse from. That's why I think most of the pictures are from the waist up. They couldn't even.
They couldn't even fit his cock in the picture.
No,
Too
no,
big,
no.
dude.
Like you don't even know. Like,
I don't think they had aerial photography at that point. If they had, if
like
they
you
had
notice
some
that
way
you
to
never
be able to do that.
Like you don't see his dick in this picture. It cuts off because his dick is just on the floor in this picture, just rolled around. Oh, you got to see it. Like it's
Yeah.
just there's a reason they cut it off there at the waist.
Yep.
They don't want you to see.
I mean, his brother, in fact, is probably standing on it. It's probably taking up the entire floor there.
Yep. He's actually, his brother's sitting on it.
Oh, he's sitting
On a coil
wow.
of it.
Yeah. They're actually both sitting on it, just using Jesse James's dick as like a park bench.
Yeah. That was his name in high school when I looked it up. Old Dick Bench.
Dick Bench James.
Yeah.
Dick so big he'd just take a seat whenever he wants.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, that's part of the.
That's what I heard about Jesse
Let
James.
us
anyway.
add that to the legend of Jesse James. Dick Bench James.
Don't ask me about that time that Jesse James ran across Gorilla. Don't ask me about that time, TJ. I won't even tell that tale.
Oh, you got it now.
Oh, well, no. You know what? I ain't doing it.
Do
I
it.
refuse.
Do it.
I refuse.
Do it, or I'm going to tell a vastly inferior version.
All right, fair enough. After Hector got done sloppily sucking Jesse James's huge coil of cock and then denied sucking Jesus' little beta wee-wee. Jesse James was pulling up his pants. He's pulling up his pants. Heard a twig snap. He turned around. And I know what you think I'm going to say, but it wasn't. It was Jesse's wife. She said, Jesse? She saw Hector laying there all cum splattered. Jesse, what's going on here? Honey, it ain't what it looked like. And at that point, his wife started to laugh in a way that was queer to Jesse, who had known her for a long time. And that laugh started to sound less and less like a laugh and more like the cry of some wild animal. She reached back and pulled off her mask, and it's Gorilla.
Always Gorilla, dude. It's always fucking Gorilla.
Gorilla looks with his infinitely wise, infinitely ancient gorilla eyes right at Jesse, and Jesse knows the meaning of this fable that he's portrayed, this comedy of errors that he's portrayed in having his wife show up. Jesse remembers that he's dead. He's in the afterlife with Jesus and Hector and Alexander the Great. He's never seen his wife here. She must have went to heaven, and he's in hell. And he realizes the gorilla's given him that wise look so that he feels the depth of the sin that he's committing. When he walks around to all these ancient heroes of old. Hercules. All of them. He's solicited blowjobs and caused the suicides of them all here in the afterlife. And for the first time in Jesse James's life, a man who purportedly never felt any guilt for the people that he killed, he saw the sorrow of his deeds in the eyes of Gorilla. And he fell to his knees for the first time in his life and wept. Gorilla started running towards him, and Jesse didn't even care, resigned to deserve to die for his sins. Gorilla walks up, raises his hands up high. Jesse doesn't even wince, ready to face his maker again in the afterlife. But instead of crushing him, Gorilla just puts his hands on his shoulders, comforts him, helps him to his feet, and then rips his fucking head out, throws it away, and walks into the woods. A noble death for Jesse James. That's how he should have gone out.
Yeah, I think people would have accepted that.
That's how he did go out in the afterlife. The second death brought by Gorilla, who
Thanks,
never loses.
Gorilla.
You thought he was going to just like let him come on.
I mean, yeah, there's no way.
Well, I knew Gorilla
Nobody has ever faced Gorilla and won. Not
Right.
even Jesse James.
Yeah, I mean, like, you've already spoiled that, so we know Gorilla's going to win every fight because there's no way he can ever lose.
Well, I didn't say that.
Well,
it's just that
he
nobody
hasn't
has
lost thus far.
Right. Nobody has ever
he could
found
lose
the
in the
correct.
future.
I will tell you that for absolutely sure, TJ.
What's that?
There is a foe out there that maybe could defeat Gorilla. And I'm not even kayfabing, but nobody's found it yet.
I don't believe it, dude.
When people find what or who it is, I will tell the story of Gorilla's defeat. But until that day, TJ.
Until that day.
The undefeated heavyweight
90
champion
million.
of the universe.
Everything else in existence, 0.
Wow. Awesome. Cool.
And that's how we do a Jesse James
That's
episode.
the Jesse James episode. Yeah.